Modern diplomacy operates like a complex mechanism. By identifying a specific gear in a rival's internal policy, a foreign power applies enough force to move the entire machine in a new direction. When U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived for his 4-day tour of India, he bypassed the political command center in New Delhi and the financial capital of Mumbai entirely. His aircraft landed first in Kolkata at Teresa Home, the international headquarters for the Missionaries of Charity. The State Department moved its highest diplomatic asset here to intervene in a local regulatory crisis, signaling this site represents a critical geopolitical interest. Washington is effectively acting as a lobbyist for a local charity because that organization is facing an imminent legislative shutdown by the Indian government. The focus of this intervention is the upcoming Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, or FCRA, 2026 Amendment Bill. Currently, an NGO that violates funding rules simply loses its license to receive overseas cash, but the new 2026 amendment introduces a cessation of registration and asset seizure clause, empowering the government to seize every acre of land and every bank reserve the moment a license expires. The Missionaries of Charity's license expires in December 2026. Under the new law, their operational infrastructure would be vulnerable to immediate avalanche takeover. The level of American diplomatic pressure suggests these bank accounts represent something more significant than simple charity. They are part of a strategic soft power network. The historical precedent is documented. In 1975, the U.S. Senate Church Committee confirmed that the CIA historically utilized missionary networks for deep cover intelligence gathering, using faith-based operations to map local trade unions and political surges. This synergy continues into the modern era. The Pentagon has previously routed black budget funding through humanitarian groups, like the HISG in North Korea, to maintain an operational presence inside tightly sealed borders. For Washington, these unregulated NGOs are vital infrastructure. India's new asset forfeiture law threatens to dismantle this entire influence network permanently. To protect that network, the U.S. is capitalizing on two specific gaps in India's domestic systems. First is defense. India relies on a massive fleet of American-made Apache helicopters and howitzer artillery. This multi-billion-dollar hardware requires continuous, localized service packages and spare parts, all of which are manufactured and controlled by U.S. defense contractors. The second gap is energy. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has strangled India's primary oil supply lines from the Middle East. India requires 5.8 million barrels of oil every day to keep its economy running. This map shows the current state, a structural supply deficit of 8% that New Delhi cannot easily fill on its own. With a compromised military maintenance line and a starving energy grid, the Indian government has few options but to look for an external bailout. Secretary Rubio's arrival provided the first part of that bailout, a 3,500 crore rupee defense package to keep those Apache and howitzer fleets operational. The second part of the strategy involves Venezuela. By establishing geopolitical control over Caracas, Washington has now successfully positioned itself as the sole gatekeeper for one of the world's largest remaining pools of heavy crude. Indian refineries are uniquely designed to process complex Venezuelan heavy crude. The U.S. is now redirecting 417,000 barrels per day to India, a flow that matches the country's energy needs with precision. This specific volume of oil compensates for the Middle Eastern shortfall, returning India's energy grid to full capacity. The United States has calculated the exact amount of energy and defense support required to create an opening for its legislative demands. The transaction is now on the table. American oil and defense security are offered as the trade-off for protecting foreign-funded NGOs. To keep its tanks fueled and its helicopters flying, the Modi government is facing intense pressure to quietly abandon the asset seizure clause. The upcoming monsoon session of Parliament will serve as the final test of this diplomatic maneuver. Strategic autonomy is difficult to maintain when the nation you are trying to regulate also supplies the fuel for your economy and the parts for your military.